Bitcoin is in a battle right now. It's fighting between the 50 MA and its ascending support that it's been in for multiple months. You can see this trend that it's following, that it is still following at this point. We've had some rough days recently, some red days. We broke our 50 MA, we broke our ascending trend within our ascending trend, and we came down, tested our ascending support here that we have bounced off now for at least the 4th time, if not more, depending on what you count some of these other moves as. But after this bounce on our ascending support, we came up really close to the 50 MA and started cooling down a little bit. By the time you watch this, we may have cooled down more, or we may be closer to the 50 MA. But what Bitcoin needs to do is break this 50 MA. If it can successfully do this, next it needs to break these highs here, and then we're coming back for our previous all-time highs. This roughly 124,000. There is some risk to the downside still. If we break our ascending support, if we come down and get rejected at the 50 MA and break this ascending support, then we are heading lower, possibly to September's lows. I feel like I've been sounding like a broken record, but September is typically a bad month for Bitcoin. Don't count out a flash crash yet. Be cautious. Be prepared. If we do get a drop in September, I do see it as a buying opportunity. Now, I did want to quickly touch on this article. We're going to talk about Iren, and should you short it here? What should you do? Should you buy it? We've got some crazy price targets now after it's been running so much. Now we have these insane like $70, $80 price targets. But first off, let's talk about this. Bitcoin will move up smartly again toward the end of 2025. And what's interesting here is Michael Saylor never talks about the cycle, or rarely talks about it. And same with this article here. He's talking about macro headwinds, you know, rate cuts coming, of course, the Bitcoin public companies announcing Bitcoin treasuries, so on and so forth. But he fails to mention the 4-year cycle. Bitcoin moves in a 4-year cycle. It had its peak in 2013. It had its next peak in 2017, next peak in 2021, and this next peak should be 2025 based on the 4-year cycle. Maybe it doesn't happen, but we have history on our side. Of course, one day this can change. Maybe it's this cycle, maybe it's not. But based on history, we could see a rough end of September. Maybe we don't. Typically, September in every cycle on a peak year has been bad. But what comes after? October, November, December typically comes out great. We get Bitcoin's top. Bitcoin tops out, hits new all-time highs, and the cycle's over. We get into crypto winter, and then the party starts again down the road. I just find it funny that Michael Saylor hardly ever talks about the 4-year cycle. And to me, it's one of the most obvious things with Bitcoin. It's based around the halving, and that's why it's so important. The halving is such a huge change on supply. It also increases demand because there's hype, because people know that Bitcoin supply after the halving gets cut in half. Bitcoin's incoming supply day by day gets cut in half. That brings hype beforehand, and after the fact, it makes Bitcoin more scarce, so it continues running after the halving, after the event. It isn't a buy the rumor, sell the news, sometimes on the short term, yes, but when you look at the 4-year cycle, it is far from a buy the rumor, sell the news event. But anyways, I guess my point is, follow the cycle until proven otherwise. Not only do we have those things that Michael Saylor mentioned, the macro headwinds, the Bitcoin treasury companies going in full force, and more companies day by day announcing these Bitcoin treasuries, but also the 4-year cycle. We have the cycle on our side here. Now, I did want to mention Iren, and Iren is running away again today. It's rallying, continuing to go up. This is it on the weekly. Just from April of 2025, just a couple of months ago, till now, it is up almost 900%, about 850%. There will be profit taking. In my opinion, the risk is higher than the reward. Can it run to 60? Can it run to some of these crazy price targets? Bernstein's calling for $75. Roth Capital's calling for $82. They are jumping on the hype train after this 800% run. And can these price targets, or that's probably the reason it's running today, is because of these, you know, crazy price targets. You got to realize that this is like a year price target. This isn't going to happen in a day, in 2 days. We might see pullbacks along the way to that price eventually. Do I think Iren will hit 70s and 80s? One day, yes. Do I think it would be way too soon if it does it in the next week or two? I find that unlikely. If you're looking to short Iren, I wouldn't do it right here. Don't just simply short on a great day like this. But one thing you can do is short on the break of structure. This weekly pattern that we have been following since April, since I showed you guys that performance, that 800% move, watch this pattern, this ascending support. If we break this support finally, it'll be the first time in multiple months. And I do think Iren could be a good short on a break of this structure. And one thing we also do have is a bearish divergence on the 4-hour. It would be nice to see it on the daily. It broke its bearish divergence and that RSI went higher. But on the 4-hour, we do have a RSI divergence. We have the RSI since mid-September not being able to go higher, but the price continues to rally. So, long story short, am I bullish on Iren on the long term? Yes. Do I think a lot of their future growth is priced in at this point? Is it running on excitement and hype? Yes. The great thing about Iren is it's a profitable company. If it can remain profitable consistently, it'll continue to grow into a higher valuation, and it could deserve much higher valuations in the future if it can remain profitable. But like I said in a previous video, upside is rather limited. This isn't the same Iren that was $5, $10. I mean, how many multiples are you hoping for from a $48 price? Are you hoping to double and bring this to 100? Maybe it can do that in a year or something. But we're not going to get any 8x from it like we saw earlier in 2025, in April of 2025, when it was $5. So in my opinion, should you be taking profits here? I do think so. Trimming a little bit, keeping some to let it ride. If you're buying this and looking for a short-term, like, couple-week trade, I think the risk is rather high. But let me know what you guys think about Iren. Are you looking at shorting it? Are you buying into the hype here, buying it at $48? When's the last time you bought Iren? Are you deep in the money? Are you selling covered calls on it? Next, we have something coming up, and this is PCE. This is the Fed's preferred gauge of inflation, and it's coming out on September 26th, just 2 days from this upload. Our last read was 2.6%. The one prior was 2.6. It would be beneficial to see this come in under 2.6%. Show some progress that it's actually coming down. The odds for a rate cut in October are already very high. If we see this come down, I think the odds will remain the same. If we see this hit 2.6% again, or dare I say go higher, then the Fed likelihoods will definitely change. This will probably change more to a 50-50 chance of a rate cut or leaving rates current if we see PCE tick up. Right now, though, we have a 94% chance of another rate cut and an almost 6% chance of leaving rates current. PCE will be one thing to watch. And then in October, before the Fed decision, we also have PPI, CPI, preferably seeing these come down. We also have a lot of jobs data coming as well. Do jobs continue to show weakness, or do we see a little bit of strength come back? That'll be another thing the market is watching, and in my opinion, that's why we got our last rate cut, is because of the horrible jobs data. Because inflation is definitely not at the Fed's 2% target. So we've got to watch both things, see where PCE goes and upcoming CPI and PPI in early October. And also keep an eye on what the labor market's telling us. Are we seeing further weakness? Are we seeing more job revisions to the downside? As it stands, we are looking at another rate cut in October, which translates to possibly more risk on rally, and also translates to lower rates. These riskier companies can acquire debt, can take out loans at a lower interest rate, which helps them out. But anyways, how are you guys feeling about Bitcoin? Do you think we break our pattern that we've been in for multiple months, that ascending support? Or do we break over the 50 MA and start heading our way to all-time high? And what about Iren? Do you think Iren hits $50 and beyond? Or do you think it's due for a pullback too? And what about rate cuts? Do you think we're going to continue to see this high likelihood for rate cuts, or does PCE surprise us to the upside? Job data, etc. Thanks as always for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.